Alright everyone, good morning. It's Thursday morning. This is the morning briefing from the Celtic Way. I'm Hamish. I've no idea why I just waved there, guys. No idea at all. You know who I am, everyone. It's quite quiet in the chat though, I must say. Maybe it was just a kind of nervous thing because we're not getting many comments in so far. Maybe people are just hungover after we signed Adam Idah. They've enjoyed themselves last night. Ryan, how are you feeling today after Idah was announced yesterday?
Brilliant, yeah. It was a bit of a late announcement. I did hear some whispers that Idah might have been at Celtic Park at some point yesterday. Those whispers turned out to be true, thankfully, and Idah was signed. Loved the way that they announced him. You can tell, even just looking at that video, the 5-6 second video, he's got that camaraderie with the players. Then you look at his Instagram when he signed as well. All the players are delighted to see him back at the club. Alistair Johnson, Lewis Palma, Joe Hart was even talking about him. He put up an Instagram story himself. So yeah, it seems like a good fit for everything, for the team bonding, for the actual player, for what the player wants to achieve as well. Permanent deal, 5-year deal. He's now finally an official Celtic player. He's Celtic's own player. And now we can properly enjoy him. I think we all enjoyed him while he was there on loan, but even more so now knowing that he's a permanent member of the squad. Looks delighted. Hopefully we get to hear from him at some point today. I know he had that exclusive interview with Celtic TV, but it'd be good to hear from him in a press conference environment. And yeah, I'm just delighted that Celtic got another striker, to be honest, because it was a bit of a risky business playing with only one striker at that point in time. So I was saying to you guys off the air, I think he'll start on Sunday. I think he'll go straight in. I see them striking while the fire's hot, and put them in from the start. He's been playing games. He's match fit. So yeah, why not?
It's finally over now, Joe. We can discuss Adam Idah as a player rather than the potential player. 5-year deal as well. So he's signed up for the long term.
I think that taps into what we've been saying for weeks and weeks. Like, despite my cool and calm demeanour calling for calm in this transfer window, the longer it was dragging on, I was like, are we actually going to sign this guy in my quieter moments? I'm pleased. I think the 5-year deal is great. It also reflects, the investment side of things without going too boring with it. It's really exciting to have a striker in the door, as you both say. But also, if this is a player that we think is improving and has been improving even in his time at Celtic, Norwich were naturally playing hardball a little bit. It seemed perhaps that's why it dragged on so long. But a 5-year deal also kind of protects Celtic's investment, assuming this player keeps going on. While he started the weekend, you know what? I wouldn't have, if it had been any other circumstance, I may have disagreed with you, Ryan. But given that we just played Hibs and we're looking to do something a little bit different, David Gray's interview was either post-match or through the week, he was looking ahead to the next game and he was saying now we know what to expect. So, completely shaking things up and having Adam Idah leading the line would be a way to combat that. I think over the course Celtic are a better team, no matter what Hibs do, but that would certainly be quite exciting for us as fans.
It's a good point. I hadn't actually considered that. The fact we're playing the same opposition, it might be worth just shaking things up slightly. There's going to be endless debates, guys. I hope you're ready for this about Idah v Kyogo, who's our number one, because we had it when Giakoumakis was there. Oh, Giakoumakis is actually better than Kyogo. Nah, Kyogo's better than Giakoumakis. We're going to get it all over again. I don't think we really need that kind of conversation, to be honest. I think we've got two number one strikers. That's what Brendan Rodgers said he wanted a couple of weeks ago. Two number one strikers. And as much as that doesn't really make sense, that is exactly what we've got. And we've got enough games going round. I think 60 odd games, close to 60 games we're going to play this season. So there's going to be opportunities for both of these guys to start matches. And the thing is, when one of them isn't starting, assuming they're fit, you're going to see them at the hour mark anyway. So two strikers, I think Rodgers is genuinely going to view them as equals, and I think you're going to see Idah as much as you're going to see Kyogo, and I think that's a good thing as well, Ryan.
Yeah, you don't spend 8.5 million if you're Celtic on a backup player, so he is going to start games in place of Kyogo in some moments, as Tony always says. I know he's off today, but I'm going to bring up one of his most popular phrases that he brings out: horses for courses, and it is true. Idah does suit different games better than Kyogo. There are certain grounds that Idah will play better in. I would say, look at Rugby Park when Celtic won the league. Kilmarnock were probably preparing for Kyogo, and instead Celtic throw on Idah. and he caused them nightmares, especially in that first half. He was causing absolute mayhem. I don't think people realise just how quick he was until he started running that 25 yard run he had forward. I always remember it very clearly in my head. It was actually, I was at Rugby Park that night and I was taken aback by how quick he was. I didn't realise he was as fast as that. So he must be showing all of this stuff in training, and that's the reason why Brendan Rodgers was so adamant to bring him in and not anybody else, because he could have brought somebody else in by now. It's clear that he's waited for his ideal target. I think that shows that Celtic value the manager too, as they should. They should be giving him the targets that he wants, or as close to what he wants as possible. He talked about developing Adam Idah when he was first originally brought on loan. He'll now be able to develop him further with the security, knowing that he's got a 5-year deal. He'll probably be up there with one of the highest earners as well, I would imagine. You don't sign a player for 8.5 and then give him 5-10k a week. I would say he's going to be one of the higher earners at the club, which will reflect his importance as well, because I think he will be one of the number one strikers. Kyogo and Idah will just interchange that Champions League format, the Champions League and then the Scottish Premiership. Being able to change them and not really dropping that much in quality whilst bringing something different to the table, I think will help Celtic massively in the long run. You'll really see the difference, because it was Kyogo and O last season. Now it'll be Kyogo and Idah. That's two players of real quality leading the line for Celtic, and I don't think there'll be that much of a downgrade, if at all, between the two players. I think there's so much still left to do with Idah's development, and that's the most exciting thing for me. He's only 23, he's about 3 or 4 years off his peak, maybe even more. So he's got so much to develop with, and he's at somewhere that he's comfortable with too. So yeah, very excited about this one.
Just on his development, Joe, and this might be a really difficult question given that we all love Adam Idah and he's been excellent since he's come to the club, and it's kind of hard to fault him at all. But if you were looking at his game, what parts of his game do you think required the most work to really turn him into a top striker?
I think for me it's simple. I think probably aerial balls. Like if you're having that big striker in there causing that kind of disruption, I get that it's more complicated than this, but I'm almost looking for the opposite of a Kyogo. Do you know what I mean? Someone to upset defence when they're getting tired if he comes on. Someone to really keep them on. Give them real physicality if he's the one that starts the game, and just getting himself a bit more in about it. When we score from corners, Liam Scales scored the other week, and it's like, a goal from a corner, everyone in the stand seems dumbfounded by it. Just simple things like that would do it for me. I think a big part of and I'm the same as you guys. It's not necessarily a helpful conversation to be comparing the two against each other in the same way we might have seen with Giakoumakis and Kyogo. Again, speaking really quite simply about it, Adam Idah clearly wants to be here, and I love Giakoumakis, but he didn't want to be a second string striker or sharing a position, which is totally fine. You wish him well, and then players move on. The same, I'm not sure of the circumstances that saw him eventually leaving the club, but when you leave, clearly it's a statement in some degree of you not wanting to be there. So one of the first things that Idah says when he comes through the door yesterday is, I think everybody knew that I wanted to be here. So he knows the situation, he knows Kyogo's quality, he knows how Brendan Rodgers is planning to utilise both. And I think that only bodes well, like knowing your place, not in a negative way, but in a positive way, coming in and knowing what needs to be done and pulling in the same direction. I'm hugely excited as well.
We remember the moments first half of last season, prior to signing Idah, when Kyogo was struggling, and people were going, put O in, and O didn't really convince, but Kyogo was still playing the majority of games because there wasn't really another viable option. I just think it's so exciting now that every time Kyogo's in the pitch, he's going to be thinking, I better do something here, because he's on the bench, waiting to come on. And, the other way as well, when he does in the pitch, he's going to be thinking, God, they've got a guy who scored, close to 100 goals, not far off for Celtic sitting on the bench. So, it's something Ange did a few times when we were chasing games. He put Giakoumakis on alongside Kyogo. I don't remember Rodgers done that yet. Have Idah and Kyogo been on the pitch at the same time? I'm not sure, but that could always be an option as well if we're really chasing a game. So I'm just so excited. Ganto saying Kyogo and Idah are different solutions tactically for Rodgers. It gives him more things to work with. Henrik McClarson, can he cope with the added pressure? Yes, it's not even crossed my mind, guys, that Idah won't be able to to deal with this. I think he's going to take to it.
Yeah, and especially with players like Nicholas Kuhn now, who are, making assists making goals for players by way of assists. He's already got 3 goal contributions this season, 2 goals and an assist. So he'll be helping him out too. You've got Alistair Johnson, who has previously worked with Idah on that loan spell. I remember specifically the goal against Motherwell that he scored, which was a low cross into Idah's path. Idah just walks onto it and passes it into the back of the net. This is where it helps, because that, and I always mention it, acclimatisation gets used in every single podcast that I do seemingly, but he doesn't need to acclimatise because he's used to being at Celtic. He would have went back to Norwich in the summer and realised that I really just want to be at Celtic. The difference between the two, he would have been, he knows where he stands at Celtic, and he knows he's got a manager that wants to develop him. There was talk of him being the third choice at Norwich. I'm not sure exactly if that would have been the case. Maybe he would have been second choice this season under their new manager, but he's going to be one of the first choice strikers at Celtic because there will be interchanging. And I think that will help Kyogo as well, because I think it will give him that freedom. It will give him pressure, knowing that there's another striker there that can take his place, but also give him the freedom, knowing that it's not just all on him to score goals. And I realise that goals happen all over the pitch, and they should happen all over the pitch. But he is the main goal getter, and having somebody like Idah that can do that as well. If you take the pressure off of Kyogo, he'll be a far better player. I know he is a pressure player and he has scored in big moments, but so is Adam Idah. And just sharing that between the two of them. Brendan Rodgers came out the other day and said he doesn't need Kyogo to score 40 goals a season, just needs him to stay involved in the game, drop deep when required, play it out to the wingers, make things happen, as well as score goals. So that mixed with Adam Idah, it really bodes well for the front line. It's a good front line. It's a good mix between the two. I don't think Idah's an out-and-out target man. I think he's a hybrid of like Kyogo and Giakoumakis, right in the middle between the two. I think that'll work well with Celtic in a lot of situations this season, particularly away from home in Europe. I think he's a great outball to have away from home. I think he could really cause some damage against European teams, especially if he's coming off the bench after 60 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Kyogo wasn't bad in the Champions League last year, but you wonder if away from home especially, Idah might be the option that might start more games, but we'll wait and see. Stephen pointing out that St Mirren in the Cup away from home, Kyogo and Idah together, that was a game Kyogo played in midfield, didn't he? That was a kind of weird period we were in at that stage when we didn't really have many midfield. I think Hatate was missing at that point, so it has happened in the past. Joe, we've got Bernardo in now, we've got Idah in. It's taken a while, we shouldn't gloss over that. It's taken far too long, should have been done much earlier, weeks earlier. But the club deserve credit for getting these two players back, because it wasn't a guarantee at the end of last season.
I think so. Like I said at the top of the programme, that's kind of been what I've been saying, broken record stuff on this. We've got 6 weeks, we've got 5 weeks, we've got 4 weeks, and it becomes a bit of a caricature, because then all of a sudden you go, Christ, there's only 2 weeks left and the bodies still aren't there. When I came into this window personally, it was goalkeeper. Obviously massive to get that position filled. I'm definitely delighted there. Don't really know much about Sinisalo yet, but don't really need to, I don't think. Kasper Schmeichel's been phenomenal from what we've seen so far. Again, very little competitively, but no complaints at all. Wanted Bernardo back in, wanted Adam Idah back in. There are still other positions I'd love to see them reinforce. There still is time, there's not as much time. I think the most frustrating thing about Celtic's transfer windows is the not knowing, isn't it? I don't know enough about business and finance and these negotiations up close because I've never had any experience of it. I don't know what takes so long. It doesn't feel like other clubs take so long at times, and that's where the issue becomes, because you use your context to understand. I still am no wiser as to why it takes so long. Norwich maybe playing a little bit of hardball, but at the same time, when we see things like the weekend where Kyogo takes a knock and all of a sudden it's like, right, we have no cover here. We've let him go weeks ago. What's coming now? But no, I do think that there's credit to be shared or to be levied at the club, or at least maybe it's Brendan Rodgers just underlining he's in charge and he needs this because he said it so many times, and there's only so many times he can rephrase that in press conferences, God willing, and all the other phrases that he's rolled out in recent weeks. So no, I think that I think there'd have been real cause for concern if we got towards the end of the window and these guys hadn't come back in. Now it's that last push, isn't it? You want to see some tangible movement in the other positions that we reckon need reinforced. And at this point for me, it's probably only left back and left centre back. I don't want to get into another discussion about who we might or might not sign, but those are the two positions that would certainly make me a lot more confident getting into domestic and this new European setup as well.
Yeah, I'm slowly coming around to that feeling as well. Obviously goes without saying Matt O'Reilly will need replaced if he moves on, but as the squad is right now, left back and as you say a left-sided centre back, maybe a left winger, but to be honest, if we get left back and left centre back, I'd be happy to go forward. There's been a bit of chat about midfield stuff today, or last night actually, Ryan. Couple of players, like the one that people will know of, and it's funny because he's come up multiple times this summer already in our comments section, even before there's been an actual link. Luke McCowan, the Dundee player, one of the standout players last season, and you know the other 10-11 clubs. Very impressive performer whenever I saw him. The chat is that Dundee are expecting an offer from Celtic for Luke McCowan, so we're clearly keen to bring him in and potentially as some sort of squad player, a very talented squad player. Hibs are in for him as well. At the moment they've had a bid of 750,000 rejected, so you're probably looking at about £1 million. He's out of contract next summer. What's the thoughts on Luke McCowan?
I just wonder if the two deals go hand in hand. Have Celtic... I know it's a different position. They still both play in the midfield, but Hibs have got Quan now, and they got that done fairly quickly. So did they know that, knowing that potentially there could be a bid coming in from McCowan? McCowan plays in centre mid. I would be perfectly fine with this because I've been impressed every time that I've watched them on the TV, whether it be against Celtic, against Hearts. Last weekend, I thought he was one of the standouts for Dundee. Just looks like a tenacious midfielder. And, you know, people will maybe be put off by the age at 26, but it's a guy that's, 26, he can still improve at the age of 26. It's the football managerification of football in general. That you get worried when there's a player that's maybe 26, 27. You're like, where's the resale value? I think maybe we've all been programmed into thinking that. What is the resale value? This is a player that knows his craft, that is really impressed last season at Dundee. Everybody seems to like the look of him. His manager can't speak highly enough of him. Tony Docherty, who I think is a really good manager himself. I would be fine with this as a squad option, as a player that knows the league, that knows what to do to operate at this level, and maybe that wouldn't expect to start every game, but be on the bench and be there to be called upon. I think he would jump at the opportunity. And if there is a deal to be done, then it would tick a box as well because he's a Scottish player, so that's homegrown as well. And I think that'd be a smart option. I know people would much rather see the likes of maybe David Watson or Lennon Miller to come in. But I think this is a good stopgap. Let's watch those two develop over the next year. Let's see if they can do it for the second season running before coming in. I know their price might increase as a result of that, but let's see how they do. I wouldn't necessarily be... If it was a Matt O'Reilly replacement, I would be concerned because I was like, why would you be shopping for his replacement in Scotland? But if that was in conjunction with the likes of Arne Engels, then I would have absolutely no problem because a squad player, a guy that you could rely upon, would be all right.
I was looking back at the players Brendan Rodgers signed during his first stint at the club, and he actually signed a surprisingly high number of players from other Scottish teams. Now, they didn't necessarily work out, but you had Johnny Hayes, Scott Bain, Jack Hendry, Lewis Morgan, Yusuf Malumbu. So Brendan Rodgers clearly values the Scottish game to an extent, and also values squad players. So you could see something like this happening, Joe.
Yeah, I think so. And just to go back to the age thing, 26, it was 25, I believe Ryan Christie was when he came onto the scene at Celtic, and that, when he came in, he was back in Aberdeen for the. But I mean, when he came back, Rodgers 2018-19 and had that run in the team where he scores a goal to win the League Cup final. He was really strong in Europe that season as well, in the Europa League, and really basically built his career at Celtic. That then saw the interest come later on for his move. So I think at 26 is, as you say, Ryan, I think that maybe we think, that's it. If they've not made it by now, what's going to keep them? But I think that there are a number of factors that play into that, and I certainly wouldn't, from what I've seen of this player, I don't think that's an issue for me. And Brendan Rodgers clearly has brought in a lot of Scottish players over time. He spoke vocally about his interest in Scott McKenna, for example. He certainly values the players around, and I don't have a massive opinion either way. I think that if it's a player that comes in, McCowan, then you can trust the manager because it's not a big outlay, it's not a marquee signing, it's not a Matt O'Reilly replacement. Clearly, then yeah, I'm more than happy to take that leap of faith. And again, it goes back to the competition in the squad. If it's another player that's banging the door and just keeping people on their toes, then I'm certainly all for that, especially when you look at players like Bosun Lawal, who's now left. We were talking a few weeks ago, but perhaps that's the player to come into the fold and really push things. It's not worked out for whatever reason, so maybe it's a player in that mould. I'm not saying the same player, but someone who can ask questions of the guys who are more obvious first team choices.
Would you rather someone like McCowan to someone like Odin Holm? That's the thing I've got on my mind. It's a kind of tough one to weigh up, but I would probably be kind of on the verge of saying yes. I mean, I want to see more Holm, but McCowan we know can flourish at Scottish Premiership level, and with better players around him, he could be a decent player for us. I'm not saying he would be starting every week, and he's clearly goes out saying he's not at the level of someone like Matt O'Reilly, but could be a useful sign, and we'll wait and see if something comes of that. What about the other player, Ryan? Arne Engels, Belgian, doing very well at FC Augsburg. They finished 11th in Bundesliga last season. Talk of a £9 or £10 million move for him, but I reckon it would be a follow-on from Matt O'Reilly leaving if it does happen.
Yeah, I think the only way, and I was speaking to somebody before this briefing, the only way that Matt O'Reilly and Arne Engels will probably share the same pitch as if they both turn out for Celtic v Atalanta. I think it's just a direct consequence of Matt O'Reilly joining Atalanta. Unfortunately, they felt the wrath of Kylian Mbappe last night in the Super Cup, so they'll be needing some recruitment, especially with Koop Miners. He wasn't even in the squad last night for the Super Cup against Real Madrid, so you would expect that to be quite far down the line to Juventus. But the caveat was that they need to sign a replacement before they allow that transfer to go ahead, which, if you put two and two together, the only real replacement they've had of that level and of that amount of money for a like for like in Koop Miners is Matt O'Reilly, unfortunately. So they've got the money there. It's all about just stumping up the cash that's required to meet the valuation. They've got no excuse. The money is there, as I said previously. And yeah, if they can do that, then I think the deal will get done, because I think personal terms have already been agreed. I think that was reported a couple of days ago that wouldn't be an issue between Matt O'Reilly and Atalanta. But it's one of those ones that, with 15, 16 days left of the window, I do expect it to happen, unfortunately. So hearing that Celtic are interested in a player that's only 20 years old, that's played in a number of positions for Augsburg, if I can say that right, centre mid, right back, right wing. It sounds a lot like Callum McGregor in his early career, because he was playing all different positions until he was 22, 23. Then he settled on that centre mid. I remember him playing left wing for Celtic under Ronnie Dyler on his debut against Reykjavik. So it takes some time to find out your position, but if Celtic are selling Matt O'Reilly for 25, 26 million and then investing 9 million into a midfielder, that's more like what other teams do in Europe. They're actually bringing in their own asset to help with the loss of their other asset that's been sold on. I've got no issues with this.
Atalanta are potentially doing, isn't it? So
it's the way that Celtic should be doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, if that happens, if it goes to Atalanta and it's Engels that comes in, a 20-year-old that's really highly rated, that was in the provisional squad for the Euros for Belgium, then I've got no issues whatsoever. Seems like a really promising player.
I think someone said earlier, Joe, that the thought of Arne Engels has just convinced him that life after Matt O'Reilly could be possible, which is something they hadn't previously considered. So we'll say Paul's saying that there's no chance we're spending 10 million on a 20-year-old. It would be a club record fee. But I mean, as Ryan says, I think if we get big money for Matt O'Reilly, we have to spend slightly less big money on a replacement. We can, I mean, I know we got lucky with $1.5 million for O'Reilly. Sorry, not lucky. It was obviously a well thought out deal and all of that stuff. It wasn't luck. But we paid 1.5 million for O'Reilly, but I feel like if for the O'Reilly replacement, you would probably have to go to that kind of 7-8 million, possibly more.
Yeah, I think like Ajax is a good example of that model, isn't it? In terms of investing a little bit more to continue moving upwards. And again, I'm no finance expert, but if the Cope Miners deal is 55 million euros, I believe that's what was getting reported. So if Atalanta was struggling at, what was the last bid that they put in for O'Reilly? Because it's been a
22, I think.
22. So then if they get that windfall and that's a commitment there, then I mean 30's not beyond the realms of possibility for what they go for Matt O'Reilly. And then even if it's 25, which seems to be the number which is going about in terms of that record for Celtic already, then yeah, I mean, I agree that with the comment made that 10 million for a 20-year-old would be bucking a trend at Celtic, wouldn't it? It would be doing something that they've never done before. It would be a record fee. Would it be seen as not a gamble? This player Engels is clearly capable, but with still so much growth. But yeah, I think it makes sense. I think that it would be the best investment. And yeah, life after Matt O'Reilly, if you'd have said at the start of the transfer window, or even into the competitive games and seeing him in the America tour as well, it's a tough one to envisage. But we've seen it so many times over the years with big players that we really didn't want to see go, and it would be a statement of intent both for the fans and also for Brendan Rodgers if he's going on about wanting backing, and anything he's said in press conferences is not coded. These are messages he's had or conversations he's had with the board. It says a lot that if Celtic were chasing something like that, who knows? It adds a little bit of excitement in the last 2 weeks of the window as well.
Yeah, he's got the kind of pedigree you'd look for. I don't think Augsburg have got massive fees in the past either. I think they sold a player to Chelsea a few years ago for like 25 million, but other than that, they've only...
Was it Baba Rahman? I think it was.
I looked it up and I'm like, who is that guy? And when did he move? 'Cause it was like 2017 or something like that. I'm like, when did that happen?
Yeah, I remember him playing Fleet and Leicester. I remember him actually playing a few years ago in a game. I can't believe we're talking about Baba Rahman in a Celtic podcast, but you just said that name. I think Reece Oxford plays for them as well, the guy that was the next big thing at West Ham. But he's moved to Germany and he plays pretty regularly for them.
I saw the name Taylor Harwood Bellis earlier somewhere as well, and it reminded me of this time last year when we were looking at him. Was it the year before? I can't remember. Yeah, okay. Stephen talking. I brought up left winger a minute ago, and I know Stephen's a big fan of our left wingers, and Maida and Palmer get 20 goals, 14 assists. Right wing was far less productive. As far as I look at it this season, simply, I'm far more hopeful and have far more trust in our right wingers. I think James Forrest and Kuhn look really good. I personally, and I know you do like him, Ryan, I'm not sure. I can't say I trust Palmer at the moment, and I want another left winger in. But I think, as I said, I'm not massively fussed. I think priorities, it's down the pecking order a wee bit. Hazel wondering about a centre back or a left back. I think Owen Beck still the chat about a left back. I saw Darryl Shea had replied to, I was about to say Shane Duffy there. He replied to Adam Idah's Instagram
Shane Duffy
post.
did as well.
Yeah.
Less said about that.
Well.
Yeah. Less said about that one, the better. But yeah, he did. He replied. I'm not going to read too much into it. Obviously, I put out the tweet on Twitter, putting two and two together. But I mean, that move to Brentford hasn't happened just yet. Maybe the pool of Champions League football could be enough for someone like Darryl Shea. He would instantly improve Celtic's back line tremendously. Recovery pace, good defender, gets in the way of blocks. He blocks really good shots as well from his highlight compilations that I've been watching. I just think he'd be a perfect fit. Be a lot of Irish players in the Celtic team as well. You think about it, you get Mikey Johnson still there. Even you get Turley coming through as well. Adam Idah, Scales, get absolutely loads, which no problem with that whatsoever. It's not happened with Brentford yet for whatever reason. They've been buying players for 27 million, the likes of Fabio Carvalho from Liverpool, who I think was linked with Celtic last season or maybe the season before on a loan deal. That's a lot of money for a player that's shown glimpses, but they've not stumped up the money for Darryl Shea yet. I think he was playing the other night as well and scored. So yeah, he'll definitely get a game regardless of where he's going. If he stays at Burnley, he'll be their first choice defender. If he goes to Brentford, he'll get game time under alongside Nathan Collins, who's also Irish. And if he goes to Celtic, I think he would walk into the first team, to be honest. It's one of those ones that I'd really like to see happen, but they're going to have to stump up mega money to get him. But they did that with Julian in the past, so I don't see what the problem would be if you're going to get a good player at that age and at that fee.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. Jugsy is in Luxembourg. Delighted Ida is in the door. Let's hope start of the transfer activity, 3 or 4 more in over the next week. And Chilpill's a fan of McCowan, thinks he could do a job. Just on this away fan stuff at the derby, I've purposely left it near the end because I find it incredibly tiresome as a subject. But basically, the story is there'll be no Rangers fans at the derby in a couple of weeks at Celtic Park. Equally, there'll be no Celtic fans at the derby at New Year at who knows some ground in Glasgow. It will probably be Ibrox at that stage, but we know that there's been a 5% away support allocation agreed earlier this year. I think a lot of us felt that was quite good news for the fixture. That's not going to happen anymore. Basically, the story is Celtic have, I think, spent a considerable amount, 6 figures, on various stuff to do with derbies and away ends and all that kind of stuff inside and outside the ground, entrances, netting, etc. And Rangers haven't been able to guarantee they're doing the same. So as a result, Joe, we've given them no tickets for the game in a couple of weeks, and we're going to get none for Ibrox at New Year.
Yeah, it's quite disappointing. I was quite looking forward to having a bigger contingent of fans in Celtic Park in a few weeks. But 3,000 then? How's my very simple arithmetic?
Well done.
How
many at Ibrox for us? See if you can work that out.
No, I can't. You need to help.
2.5.
2.5.
I've told you before. I went to Seville in 2003 and missed my maths exam at school, so that's a measure of my maths. Semi-competent at writing, and even that's up for debate. But no, I think it's disappointing. But equally, I've seen a mix, a kind of divisive response among Celtic fans. Some saying that they're really disappointed. Some saying that it's Celtic should maybe have given Rangers more wiggle room in that regard, given the circumstances at Ibrox. I get it. It's running the risk of giving your fiercest rivals and your biggest contenders for the league an advantage that can't be guaranteed at the other end, isn't it? So Celtic go for it. They do the 3,000 fans, and it makes it very difficult for us, win, lose or draw, and then you don't get the same. It's not reciprocated at Ibrox because of the safety issues which have cropped up over the last few years. And I understand it. I think you can be disappointed but still understand it. That's kind of my stance. I saw some images floating about on social media yesterday about some of the external stuff that Celtic have put in at the away end. Some it was kind of fencing and new kind of structures just outside the stadium. So clearly it's in place and ready to go for the game in a few weeks' time. But yeah, it's a shame. You say it's a shame because it definitely, obviously, it makes the atmosphere better. But you get a decent victory in a few weeks' time, and it matters a lot less then, and you just have to deal with it at Ibrox in January, or Hampden, or whatever that ends up being, as you say.
Yeah, kind of sums up how I feel. I guess for the one thing it does mean in a couple of weeks is the stadium will be filled entirely with Celtic fans, and I guess it's a big opportunity to beat Rangers. And I think given the way the teams are playing and the way the fortunes are of both teams, Celtic fans will be wanting a big victory in that game. I think the expectation, funnily enough, will be for us to win that convincingly because we're so far ahead of them at the moment. So it's only a couple of weeks as well, Ryan, that game, but it's going to be all Celtic fans there.
Yeah, and these can provide unique atmospheres, but my personal preference, and although I did enjoy that now legendary game, that 3-0 game where control was really taken back into Celtic's hands under Ange Postecoglou, the game that Hatate really announced himself as a Celtic player. They're great, and the 4-0 as well was great too, with Jota scoring one of the best Glasgow derby goals I've ever seen. It was a great chip one. That was like my sort of Larsson goal over the head, because I wasn't there. I didn't see that Larsson goal. I'm not comparing the two, but I'm just saying that was that sort of memorable moment. If it was me personally, I would want the opposition fans in Celtic Park. I think it adds to the atmosphere, it adds to the derby. It does give a different atmosphere having only Celtic fans there. I understand why Celtic have taken this stance, because there is a lot of unknown factors with the way the ground is at the moment, with the way Ibrox is at the moment, with their the development getting done there. So I can see why they've taken this stance, but at the same time, I agree with Joe. I'm disappointed that there won't be opposition fans there, because I think it adds to the derby. I thought that because there had been this agreement, that would be it, but it just seems as if there's more in the road. There's more roadblocks to getting back to the way the derby should be, and that's annoying, because there was such a big song and dance made about the derby going back to somewhat the way it was with fans in the stadium. So to have this roadblock, which is probably more Rangers' fault than Celtic, I would say, because of the development of their stadium being halted, or the parts not arriving, etc. It is disappointing, but you're just going to have to feel the aftermath of that in January as well, when Celtic fans won't be at Ibrox either. I'm just hoping these will be the last 2 games that this is affected by. And
I was going to ask that. Is that sorry to interrupt, but is this? Do we reckon it's game by game? Like, so naturally the Rangers have reacted to Celtic's decision in January, but the game in March and April or May,
I think it'll be tit for tat. Yeah.
See the thing I don't get is the SFA, or sorry, not the SFA, the SPFL have come to an agreement here, and the clubs have come to an agreement. So to what extent is that agreement binding, and to what extent is it just a kind of goodwill kind of gesture agreement type thing? So that's what I was looking for. Like, will there be any punishments if Rangers don't abide by? Because Rangers surely have agreed to this, so they have to have stuff in place, or certainly an indication they will have in place. Celtic clearly feel they don't, so surely by that very logic, Rangers haven't lived up to the deals of the agreement.
Yeah, so I thought that this would have been enforced more by the
That's
SFA.
what I mean. They
to be
just
honest
seem
with you.
so
Yeah, I'm just
SPFL. They seem spineless.
Yeah.
Like,
I'd be if it was me, and this is just taking or trying to take as neutral an opinion as possible. If you're in the SFA, this SPFL, you would say no, that's not happening. There is going to be fans at the game, and if it is at Hampden, then there will be X amount of fans there of the opposition, which will be Celtic at that point. So I thought they would have enforced it a bit more, but it seems as if they don't have the powers, or either that, or they're not choosing to use the powers for fear of backlash from the two teams. Which
I do wonder if they boxed themselves into a corner a little bit with it, because really they should have intervened before now, tit for tat or whatever, and I understand why Celtic took the approach they did after Rangers shortened Celtic's allocation essentially after the 3-2 Edward game, wasn't it, back in 2018 or whatever it was. It did become a bit tit for tat to a degree. I always kind of resented that way of describing it, though, because Rangers made a decision that Celtic had to react to, but at that point the powers that be should have intervened and just said, right, okay, from this date forward, from the new season, we need to get fans back in. And it became a bit of maybe laughing stock's too harsh, but a lot of pundits and a lot of commentators outside of the Scottish game were looking inside and going, like, how is this allowed? And I actually understand both clubs not wanting to yield at some point, because it's when do you allow it? So I wonder if the SPFL have, just because they've let it run for so long, that there clearly isn't actual grounds for formal intervention here. But if it needs to be September, obviously we know that. In January, I want March and the game after the split to be back to what we're hoping for as fans, because it does make it a little bit trickier, but you know the feeling what it's like when a derby's won and there are opposition fans there. It's pretty priceless.
I guess the thing you would say on the park is I personally don't trust. This weird thing to say. I don't trust Rangers to get a result at Celtic Park with no fans. I think they don't deal with that well. I don't think they've ever had a result with no fans. I do trust us at Ibrox with no fans, because we won there last season, got a draw, won there previously with no fans. So it's probably on the pitch not a bad thing for us, but I think we all feel generally that we'd want better atmosphere there. But people feel differently about that. There is an Adam Idah press conference today, by the way, guys. So So we'll be hearing from Adam Idah today, which is all well and good. Anything else, Ryan? You were choking to say something there, I thought.
No, just to say that Adam Idah press conference, we'll have the full Q&A on the website as well, so that'll be available whenever it drops. I'll write that up and get that on the site as soon as possible. I know we're all dying to hear about Adam Idah, how he got to the club, how he managed with being at Norwich and then coming back to Celtic. I think we're all just delighted to see Adam Idah back at Celtic. There's a feel-good factor, following on from things that have happened earlier this week. Striking there and bringing in Idah, announcing it. Really, the momentum is with Celtic at the moment. They've managed to sort of turn the transfer window around, but I think they can really add to it. They've not made any bad signings yet, or bad signings as we, as you would expect. But, those sort of project players. Every signing, apart from Sinisalo, but I understand why that's the case. You bought Schmeichel, first team player. Sinisalo, project player, but a number 2, might even play at the weekend. Paulo Bernardo, first team player. Adam Idah, first team player. These are all guys that are going to play games from now until the end of the season. And I think I prefer that to having, 5, 6 potential projects, your Tilios, your Yangs, your Kwons. It's better off like that because you know that these guys will actually come in and make a difference in the starting 11. But that's all I really wanted to say.
Okay, all well and good. Thanks, guys, once again for coming on and chatting a bit about Celtic. Thank you to the well over 1,000 of you who are watching live right now. It's much appreciated. Don't forget to give us a wee sub as well while you're at it.
Can I just bring up the subscription offer quickly?
You can.
Sorry,
well done.
Oh, that's the wrong one. I've clicked the wrong one.
I'll get it for you. You talk away.
Thank you very much, mate. 2 wee seconds. So I'll talk about it while you're putting it up. So it's £12 for 12 months. Thank you very much. New season sale. Kick off the new season with a year of the Celtic Way for only £12 at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. If you're looking for opinion pieces from myself and Ryan, scouting pieces from Stuart, as well as analytical pieces from Stuart and Alan as well. On there this morning, there's a data piece from Alan about Kasper Schmeichel and particularly his distribution. He's not really had the save to make yet as a Celtic player. So that'll obviously change in the coming weeks, but his distribution has been quite brilliant, actually, when you look at the stats. So that's on the website. Some really, really encouraging numbers in that regard. So if you're looking for the best offer that we've got, £12 for 12 months of action, that'll be you sorted until next August. One-time offer, £12 for 12 months, and get involved. And thank you to everybody that's joined us thus far. We really, really do appreciate it.
We do indeed. Right. Bye, everyone. Speak to you